Dear media, good day and welcome in Switzerland, for the traditional end of the year press conference with FIBA Secretary General Andreas Zagklis. Andreas, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Many thanks to all of you who joined today all around the world. I think we can be celebrating today a record attendance for this press conference, which is great. It's every year a bit more crowded, and we are very happy about that. 2025 was actually an exciting year for the world of basketball, and I'm sure we will have a lot of interesting discussions and questions for the Secretary General. After some opening remark, Andreas will take the question that I'm sure you are all eager to ask. But before, as usual, as you know, we are not physically in a room, and it's always a bit more difficult. So some housekeeping rules, please. In principle, you are here only able to listen in. If you have a question, we need to identify yourself. So make sure that your name is on your profile so we know who you are. And then to be able to get the floor for a question, please raise your hand. You can otherwise use also the Q&A, which works also. And my colleague Jalinka Michaud, who you all know, will give you the floor. Then you need to accept to join as panelists, activate the camera, and make sure you unmute the microphone. We will try to accommodate as many questions as we can today, hopefully everyone, but of course, we also have a time constraint. We know some might have more than one question. We ask you to have one question per intervention, and at the end, we are happy to give you a floor a second time if you have another question. So hopefully it's clear for everyone. I talked enough for today, and I'm happy to give the floor to you, Andreas, for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here on behalf of the International Basketball Federation. What a year it has been for FIBA basketball. The year of the Continental Cups on the basketball side for both men and women, 8 of them, starting the summer with fantastic Continental Cups for women, 4 countries in Europe, finals in Piraeus with a very high attendance, a record of attendance, excellent audiences in Shenzhen, China, for the Asia Cup women, bringing some new stars of our sport. Perhaps the best ever AmeriCup of women in Chile, and definitely in a renovated venue in Abidjan, and Afrobasket women full of emotions. It gave us one more champion. The 4 champions have already qualified to the Women's World Cup in Berlin, Australia, Nigeria, Belgium, and the USA. Then we moved to the men's continentals. Again, 4 tournaments that really showed the growth of our sport. Biggest audiences ever on media, both on TV as well as also social media, with fantastic finals in Riga, Latvia, for the Eurobasket men, in Nicaragua, in a venue that we discovered during COVID, sold out house, seeing Brazil prevail. In Europe, of course, we saw Germany repeating, coming back out of their World Cup title with the Eurobasket title. In Angola, one of the most passionate crowds I've ever seen in my life, and you can imagine from my origin, I have seen a few of those. In Angola, a fantastic weekend of the finals, Angola winning the Afrobasket crown, and in Asia Cup in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, down to the wire, one shot to win the title, that Australia prevailed over Team China. We also had the under-19s, perhaps the best ever under-19 in Switzerland, a few kilometers from the house of FIBA. 90 years since the first FIBA event. That was 1935 Eurobasket here on the shores of Lake Léman in Lausanne this time. The Swiss showed how much they love basketball, and they welcomed some of the biggest already stars of our sport. The MVP, AJ Dimbanza, definitely one of the up and coming stars of basketball. In Czechia and Brno, we met the next generation of the women superstars in the under-19. Very happy with both tournaments, and we're looking ahead for Brno under-17 girls and Istanbul under-17 boys. On our club side, closing the season with a fantastic Final Four of the BCL in Athens, great BCL Americas in Rio de Janeiro, BCL Asia with the Japanese team winning after a long time in Dubai, in UAE, and of course the BAL giving us a new champion, a champion that came all the way from the road to the BAL, the Libyan champions of Al Ahly. The four of them, together with the G League United, the NBA G League United, and the champions of the NBL from Australia and New Zealand, gathered in Singapore. Right after the Eurobasket, we gathered in Singapore for a truly world-level event, continental champions of all FIBA competitions. That was a real gathering of the club basketball family. Definitely the most busy summer that we have seen for almost a decade. Definitely the busiest in number of events, and definitely also in terms of reach after the World Cup in Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia. I would like to mention also 3x3. 3x3 celebrated its largest in terms of event season, although this was a post-Olympic year, and the post-Olympic year we know has a certain tendency to be in the cycle, this let's say the calmer year of the four, but coming out of Paris with such a great 3x3 tournament. The big news for the FIBA basketball family, perhaps the biggest news of the year for us, was the expansion in LA 28 of 3x3 basketball from 8 to 12 teams. One of the biggest successes of our house in its recent history, the first expansion of basketball in reality since the early 90s, from 1996, that the women's basketball tournament grew from 8 to 12 teams. We had never seen an expansion before. Of course, following on the legacy of Patrick Baumann and the inclusion of 3x3 in the Olympics for 2 Olympic Games, Tokyo and Paris, with 8 teams, now 12. This is not a small feat. It has a tremendous multiplying factor, because for every new spot there, we calculate at least 10 aspiring countries. So you can imagine with 4 new spots, we expect at least a new block of 50 countries around the world investing. And we have seen already with Olympic Solidarity and the IOC next to us. Our relationships with our 2 institutional partners, the IOC, are moving into a new era with a new president, Kirsty Coventry, first woman, first African, and if I may say, with a small smile on my face, first one also born in the 80s, like some others of us, and with new, fresh ideas, continuing on an incredible legacy that President Bach is leaving. And we were very happy to meet with her. Most recently, I met with her in ancient Olympia for the lighting of the flame, a president that was an Olympic champion and knows very well what it means to treat well the players, which is a fundamental priority for FIBA, having shown the way with the World Cups and how we take care of our players also in our continental. So we're looking forward to working together, and in parallel, our cooperation with our other second big institutional partner, that is our top professional league in North America, the NBA, is moving, as you all know, into new areas of interest, new areas of possible cooperation, following all the things we're doing together in the grassroots, from the Basketball Without Borders that is celebrating 23 years already, and moving to the Junior NBA, moving to, as I mentioned, the ICC with the G League playing with us in a FIBA competition, the BAL in Africa, having finished yet another successful season. And we are now proceeding with our conversations that we have announced earlier this year in March for potential cooperation in a new league in Europe. We look at this in a very optimistic way, and at the same time, FIBA does not forget its role as the world governing body, as the institution that tries to bring everyone together. So we had during the summer also good conversations with our colleagues in ECA, and as you have probably seen, for the first season after 22 years, if I'm not mistaken, 23, yes, since 2003, since 2002, 2003 season, for 2 windows, we have no overlap between the games of the national teams and of EuroLeague. We're not, of course, absolutely happy with that, but it is a step forward, and we've tried in our institutional role to bring everyone together. I'm sure there will be many questions on this last topic. It attracts a lot of public attention. It has to do with one of the 3 fundamental pillars of FIBA strategy, which is shaping international club competitions. And I insist on mentioning this every year that we meet in this end of year conference, because FIBA is not obsessed with control. FIBA is, however, obsessed with as good as possible structures and clear pathways for everyone in the family, whether this is a national team that wants to have a clear pathway to the World Cup, or this is a club in a given continent that wants to have a pathway to the top continental competition, and through that to the ICC. And that is one of our priorities also in the discussions with the stakeholders, and in particular with the NBA, for this new project. And therefore, I do believe that an important piece of the news that we need to communicate and we need to inform you is not simply that we're looking at a model that complies with the European sports model, but we are also looking at a model that not only through the second tier league, through the BCL in this case, but also in parallel through a qualification tournament, an end of season qualification tournament, collecting champions, collecting the next best rank from the BCL, we can qualify teams to the top tier league in Europe. So this is for us one of the fundamental pieces of the puzzle, because as you know, in these conversations, FIBA does not only represent the national teams and the national federations. FIBA represents also our domestic leagues, and the domestic leagues are an important, very important piece of the fiber, not only in Europe, but also across the globe. And in this respect, moving a little bit outside Europe, I need to acknowledge the big improvements we're seeing in the Japanese league and the Chinese league. You have probably seen also the news that the B League in Japan is breaking records of audiences and growth, and that the CBA is moving back from the experiment of 48 minutes back to 40 minutes and full compliance with the FIBA regulations, which I consider a major change in the way we are delivering our sport. I would then stop looking back and look a little bit forward, and looking forward means nothing else than this beautiful trophy next to me that will be delivered on the 13th of September in Berlin, Germany next year. The Women's World Cup is our biggest event in 2026. The first stop will happen in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in Istanbul, Turkey, in Villeurbanne, Lyon, in France, and also in Wuhan in China for the qualification tournaments in March, going all the way to Berlin. If you haven't booked your tickets, I really recommend you do that. This will be a spectacle like no other. And we do prepare hard for the qualification tournaments, for the draw on the 21st of April, and then for the final phase in an ever-changing and ever-growing women's basketball environment. I remind you, already in 2019, FIBA decided to change the gear, and we're happy that despite COVID, more women and more superstar women players are making it now to the top stage. And there is no accident that in LA 28, the night before the opening ceremony, we'll have the first game of the USA team on a dedicated slot for women's basketball in LA 28 Olympics, where I have the pleasure to contribute through the IOC Coordination Commission as a member. I am open to take any questions. It's impossible to cover everything we're doing from the development and the another 30 youth tournaments around the world, the empowering of our national federations with record numbers of growth, and of course, as late as 2 weeks ago, with the road to Doha, Qatar, opening a fantastic window where more than 900 players traveled to play with a flag on their chest, and some of them also decided to play their last game. And I wanted to make a special mention to two of them that gave everything in their careers for their national teams, to Georgi Shermantini of Georgia, and a player that has seen Georgia going with him all the way to the World Cup, and many years BCL best center, and of course Andrew Albisi, who had to suffer at the beginning of the windows with all the public, the negative publicity of the surrounding Team France, that Team France that gave us so many stars of today's Team France, and life rewarded him with a bronze medal winning shot in Beijing 2019. So we are thankful to them and the many other players, those who are true captains of the national teams, from Campazzo going all the way to Cuba, and then Buenos Aires, all to Hezonia or Shengelia, or many others all across the 5 continents that we celebrated games with fantastic games, from Australia, New Zealand, Trans-Tasmanian Derby, to some surprises in Europe and in the Americas, to passionate games in Tunisia, and of course in West Asia, some results that are a first in the history of Asian basketball. So we're pretty happy with how things look, but we feel very much motivated, and a lot of opportunities, challenges ahead of us. And the Central Board met last week, taking quite a few important decisions that you saw in our press release that I would be happy to comment on, or any other element you would like to discuss. So thank you for being with us, and happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andreas. Refreshing to see also your passion, and we see how you lived those qualifiers, emotions that we had a week ago. Let's start with the US. We go to Joe Warden from The Athletic. I think it's all fair to give him the floor, as he had to wake up pretty early this morning for him. Please join as panelists and unmute. There you go. Good morning, Joe.
Well, good afternoon to you guys. And I was born in 1980, just so we can get that clear. Andreas, great to see you. With FIBA being the international partner for the NBA, I did want your take on if you had any doubt at this point that there would be a European venture sponsored by the NBA. And then you mentioned it, I'm glad you did, about the play-in component of that. I was wondering if you could elaborate on the play-in side, and maybe who might be eligible, or which leagues would have access to play their way into an NBA Europe type league.
I don't have doubts. That's, I think, answering the first part of your question. I think it will happen, and I believe it will happen. And on the second component, this is part of our job, as you know, as the guardians of the ecosystem, to ensure league access. And league access means the opportunity to play every year at the top. No more elevator element that you play once, you invest, and then you have to go down to the previous level where you came from. As long as you perform well in your domestic league, you will have the chance. Of course, we will have to look at rankings. We have to iron out the details. But I mentioned it today because this is an important element of the openness. And this level of openness is not just European sports model and nice words on a piece of paper. This is a clear pathway to hundreds of clubs around Europe. And this is part of our job to ensure that this hope is there and then it is translated into investment into basketball, which is spread out over the hundreds of clubs that participate in European national leagues. And that is why we consider this a big piece of FIBA's role in this, not only through the second tier, the BCL, but also through domestic leagues. And that is why I said, when we are at the table, we represent both our members as well as the national championships. Some of them, as you know, have a 100-year history and incredible traditions, and also very sound business models. So this is the engine that produces players. And from a fan perspective, it is also a question of respect to the fans of the clubs that until today do not have the chance, do not have either no chance or any realistic chance to see their team reach the top by winning and winning and winning. So that is the, I think, element that makes a difference here. One of the elements, at least, that makes a difference, and it is very close to FIBA's role in this project.
Thank you.
Regards.
Joe. And we can move to Italy. From Gazzetta dello Sport, we have Davide Kenelato, who should be appearing on your screen and be ready to ask the next question. Davide?
Hello, guys. Can you see me?
Absolutely. Ciao,
Awesome.
Davide.
Ciao. Thank you very much for doing this, and thank you very much for answering my question. I want to say on the subject of the NBA Europe venture you guys have on. I'm curious about how far do you think we are from playing this league, and if you think an October 2027 start it's a realistic target, considering all that you just said.
Considering that I just said I believe it will happen, that I have no doubts. We need, of course, approvals by the respective two boards of the NBA and the FIBA Central Board. I do believe that October 2027 is a realistic target, and that it is also an ideal way of closing the curtain in Doha with tremendous. I'm very confident about FIBA Basketball World Cup and moving into a new project that shapes the European club basketball landscape in a positive way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Davide. From Italy, we can move to Spain. We have Pilar Casado from Cadena Cope, who should be able to join us soon to ask her question.
Hello to everyone.
Hola, Pilar.
Andreas, hola.
Hola.
Thanks so much for your time first. We are at the beginning of a new cycle of qualifiers that will reach to the two great events, women and men World Cup, Basketball World Cup. And that's the question. You have said that you don't have any doubt about the NBA is coming to Europe. And my question is an open question. Once the NBA competition arrives in Europe, given the good relationship between FIBA and NBA, players that plays to these franchises is going to be able to play with the national teams during the qualifiers. And if we are talking about 2027 as the beginning of NBA Europe, Do you think more EuroLeague games are going to the Basketball Champions League?
Thank you very much. Not very open question, I must say, very concrete question, and very interesting one. Thank you. If I may make one comment before I answer, I would not call this an NBA competition because, as we have said, FIBA would be part of this. So if you want to call it an NBA FIBA competition, then I would be able to agree. We need to make it clear that, as it was announced, this would be subject to the elements that I mentioned earlier, a partnership. It will not be an NBA competition. It will be a competition that will be operated to a large extent by specialists, of course, that come from the NBA. But I want to underline that FIBA's role is not only to give its blessing to competitions. FIBA's role is to operate and has been operating club competitions since the 50s and for 40 years alone. And over the last years in competition, the BCL is a competition partly owned by FIBA. And our ambition is that if that competition takes place, and I said I believe it will happen, it will be FIBA would be part of this and not. So I would like to correct the statement NBA competition. Even if the NBA name is part of its nomenclature, this is not an NBA competition. It's an NBA and FIBA competition. This is very important because this is what the central board of FIBA has required of the management, of the leadership, including myself. Second, yes, the discussion we've had is availability for national team windows of qualifiers. Three, you asked me about the teams. And then I also need to restate something that I said last year, I think, or year before. Someone said, what about EuroLeague teams? I said, for us, there's no such thing as a EuroLeague team. For us, all these teams are FIBA teams, including the teams that are owners of or co-owners of ECA, the mother company of EuroLeague. So we care a lot about them. We care a lot about them having a role, a position, making money, which has not been always the case, as you know, and that is perhaps at the heart of the problem. And that is why we've been inviting them. And last May, 27th of May, they were here. In reality, first time after 10 years, all of them in the house visiting us. And we had prepared for them, a trip to history, because their history goes through this house, the FIBA house, and we have tremendous respect for them, as we do also for the leadership of ECA. And on the personal level, their relationship, I must say, is very respectful and very good. So our job is to try to find a place for everyone in this ecosystem. And whether this relates to business elements or elements of new economics that will surface with this new venture, then it is a question of those who negotiate. FIBA will not be negotiating the financial terms of that, but we do not want that they feel in a certain way disadvantaged. And that is what we've been trying to do. Of course, it's not easy because, even those who play, the 20 who play, some of them have a right to vote and some of them do not have a right to vote, which is also a strange system of a league. And some of them have made public statements in a certain way. Some others have different agendas. So it's not easy for the leadership of ECA or for us to try to bring everyone together. But our commitment, and they know, is to really continue trying to bring everyone together. And to me, it is not at all part of my agenda if the team plays here or there. I have to tell you that. My focus is on the structure.
Thank you, Pilar. We can move to the next question, and we go to Greece. We have Aris Barkas from Eurohoops joining us. Aris knows the drill, so he should be appearing soon. Good afternoon, Aris. You can activate your camera and unmute, and you'll be appearing on the screen.
Sorry for the delay, because I'm on the road for commentating a BCL game. So
That's a
thank
good
you, Mr.
reason.
Zagklis.
That's a good reason.
In Karditsa, yes. So thank you, Mr. Zagklis, for this opportunity. Essentially, my question is a follow-up to what Pilar said. You spoke about your talks with the EuroLeague. Do you believe that there is still ground for a collaboration between all interested parties? And how this also applies, and what will be your answer to the criticism that has come on a political level from parts of the European Commission on this new project? And if I may add, because you already addressed the issue, if next year will be very important for the BCL because it will serve as a qualification for the NBA Europe project.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to note what you asked because I don't want to miss any of the pieces. First question, still hope? Yes. And I can tell you, and my colleagues who were at the meetings can attest to it, I prefer to look naive and try until the end for a solution, because that's the role of FIBA, to bring everyone together, and that's written on the wall outside, making our sport one community. And therefore, it is our job to continue trying that. Even if I know that in the history books, we will have one day to analyze what happened in spring 2024, because that's where we had the big opportunity and we missed it. And then we started diverging, but still we try to bring everyone together. That I would like to confirm to you. And yes, FIBA, if our major institutional partner is moving into such an endeavor, FIBA wants and has to be part of it. At the same time, this is not contra EuroLeague, contra ECA. I want to be very, very clear on that, because we've managed to build relationships with our clubs that were broken for years, and we've managed to bring them back together. And without being fully satisfied, we have made some steps in a good direction, also thanks to the relationship that I have to publicly admit that I've managed to forge with my colleague, Mr. Moteyunas, and the fact that there is certain understanding of where we agree and where we do not agree. One, hope, yes, and if not the last, I will be one of the last who drop the pen and say and close the cahier, the notebook, and say this doesn't work. Three, I think you asked me about BCL, if I'm not mistaken, or it was something in between.
In between was your reaction, your reply
on the political side, yes. On the political side, I urge everyone to look at the facts. And the facts are pretty clear that what is being designed is much more compatible with the European sports model and with the FIBA criteria than what we've had over the last years, many years. So, and that is what is at the heart of what is happening right now. There is no doubt. There is no doubt that it takes us, you don't want to say 25, you can say 15 years to convince our clubs, our top clubs, of 2-3 main values, the calendar, the rules of the game, the protection of the domestic league, the openness, the second tier. And I say this every year. You know what FIBA has been asking. FIBA has not changed a comma in what has been asking over the years. And it has taken us, every year I was getting the question, are you making progress with EuroLeague? Are you making progress? And I was not able to give you big news about huge progress. And it may have taken 15 years or 25 for those who want to remember 2000. But I can tell you, it didn't take more than 25 minutes for the NBA to accept this. So, and that is, if you ask me, at the heart of the issue. The politicians can say what they would like to say. I understand there are different elements. You can demonize someone who's coming from outside the continent. You can demonize the franchises. The reality is, already in our reality today, we have someone outside our continent, and we do have, both on the commercial side and on the playing side, we do not have respect of the national teams as we should have during the season. We do have a closed league de facto that is, as I said, for many clubs impossible to reach, and for the vast majority de facto impossible to reach. So I'm very happy to talk about these facts with any politician in Europe or with any colleague that presents this as a problem for sport. So our position as FIBA, whether this is ECA or whether this is the NBA, is the same, and that's what I do have to tell you. And therefore, our participation in such a project is consistent to what we've been saying all along. BCL, I prefer to address questions of BCL to BCL. BCL has the leagues, the European Basketball League, that's the new name of ULEB, and many leagues. On the board of BCL, the FIBA representatives are not the majority, as you know. Everybody says the FIBA BCL, but I don't sit there, and Patrick Komninos reports to the leagues, to a few FIBA representatives, and to the investors. So I think the BCL has shown what it can do, a very, very high level of quality in delivery of the events, attracting Alba Berlin, Galatasaray, Tenerife, Malaga, and I can go on and look at the list of those who've played 7, 8, 9, 10 years together with the BCL, and signing now a naming partner, a fantastic deal. So things were going anywhere very well for the BCL, and much better every year. Now, if that means it qualifies as well to a higher level, that is, I guess, positive news for the BCL and a normal evolution of the things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aris. We go back to Italy. We have from Sky Italia, Davide Fumagalli, who is up for the next question.
Hello, Mr. Zagklis. I'm
Hello.
Davide Fumagalli from Sky Sport Italy. Thanks for the meeting and thanks for your time. My question is about the window. 2 weeks ago, we had the first qualifying window for the 2027 World Cup. We saw some funny games, some new faces in the court, some young players. In Italy, we had, for example, Swigo and Ferrari. And my question is, what are you feeling about these new windows, and what feedback do you receive from the fans, also on the social media, about these games? Thank you.
Well, first we had the retirement of a legend, and I need to acknowledge Danilo Gallinari, who's given his sweat, and sometimes more than his sweat, his good health as well for the Squadra Azzurra. So a big thank you and acknowledgement to him, and to a federation that is working hard, both on the men's and women's side, getting a medal this year after many years in a Eurobasket with a new generation of very promising female players. Every time we have a window, on the lead up, you have all the logistics, hundreds of players, 72 teams, 72 national teams played. That tells you everything around the world. And we start the games at 6 a.m. and we finish at 4 o'clock the next morning. It's 24 hours for 5 days, 75 games. In average, we have more than 300,000 fans in the venues in 5 days watching their national teams. And the important thing is, one, there is the moment where you get the maximum attention to basketball because the national team is playing. So at the end of the window, the level of satisfaction is traditionally very high. I don't hide from you. Often I get messages, we would like to have 3 windows. I know this is not possible and it will not be in our plans for the next cycle. The next cycle will have the same number of windows. What I really appreciate is that in the windows, the national teams have the opportunity to have a larger pool of players. That is where we see new faces, and that is where we also see the stars coming back and playing in front of their home crowds. And I mentioned a few of these examples earlier, and I'm very thankful to the players, their clubs, and the national teams for this 9 days of tremendous cooperation. Because if you look at how many clubs from many continents, federations, and players are involved, you will understand, noting that still it is the biggest centrally produced from a TV perspective, sport event in the world. So we're very proud of how we started the road to Doha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Davide. Let's move to France, and we welcome Yann Onona from L'Équipe. Bonjour Yann.
Salut, ça fonctionne. Hi everyone. My question is about, if we go back 25 years ago, there was this crazy situation where European basketball had 2 competitions for 1 year, the EuroLeague and the Super League. So I was wondering if you're fearful that, European basketball could have to live through a new, fragmentation and situation like this. And the other part of my question is, ideally, according to your vision, how do you see basketball being, 10 years from now, if everything goes accordingly to your vision and what you aim and what you hope? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yann. Bonjour. I think we are already fragmented, so I do not see a risk of fragmentation. The fact that we didn't manage to find an agreement approximately 10 years ago when the BCL was created speaks to the same. So I'm not worried about all these. We do not need one more competition parlance, because we do need an event that will allow us to bring everything under the same roof. And as I said at the beginning, under the same roof means the FIBA roof, and it does not mean FIBA controlling everything. We never asked for that, at least in the last 7 years and 1 day that I'm in charge. Therefore, I do not have any fear of fragmentation. I'm not happy with the current structure, which is already fragmented. And I have also to say one thing. Because you mentioned 2000. The FIBA has been fighting for a very simple structure of the competitions, 1 or 2 or 3 levels. And we were sued for that. We were sued for that before the courts in Munich, and we were sued for that in Brussels. And we were sued by our top European clubs and by ECA, saying, no, you cannot defend your monopoly, meaning fragmentation is good, because this is business. So FIBA complied, although we won the case in Munich. FIBA complied, and FIBA said, very good. the BCL will operate. The leagues came to us and said, we want to run BCL with you. Very good. And we compete. And that is what Brussels is telling us. Basketball is business. You should compete in an open market. And that's what ECA and EuroLeague has been fighting for. Therefore, I find it peculiar now that we should animate our fans and our politicians against what we have accepted as the norm of basketball, which is competition, because a bigger business may come in and may have bigger financial strength. So, as I said, FIBA is consistent. We want everything under the same roof. And my vision is everything under the same roof with the clarity of a first tier to which you qualify from the second tier and from domestic leagues, and a third tier. Second tier and third tier certainly would be our job, because that is our job. We develop the sport, and the first tier will have principal commercial actors and our top clubs and the others who play there to benefit and make money, which is good because this means more money for our players and coaches as well. We are consistent in that, and we have not changed. I do not accept that someone who wanted open competition and application of EU law says now, no, we need to protect the tradition and we need to protect the incumbent. We were the incumbent for 40 years, 42 years. And disruption happened, and we know what happened after that. You don't want me to tell you. So if we accept, and basketball community and family has accepted that disruption is something that can happen because this is business and FIBA's monopoly should not be protected, I don't understand why suddenly we should protect the monopoly of someone else. That said, it is our job to bring everyone together. And I will continue trying that.
Thank you. Merci, Jan. Let's move to Alex Donaldson now from Sportcal. Good afternoon, Alex.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having us.
Hello.
Appreciate you taking the time. Just wanted to ask, obviously FIBA has conducted a lot of wide-ranging media rights deals throughout this year. When you look at the NBA FIBA project coming up, do you have already expectations of what sort of figures you might be looking at? Is that based on the rights fees you're receiving for current FIBA competitions, or are you looking at what the NBA and other basketball competitions are receiving in Europe? And similarly, have there already been talks with sponsors to help support the competition?
I have to be fair in answering this very interesting question, that it's very early for me to answer on this. And FIBA is very much focused right now on the structure, how this can be helpful for the entire ecosystem, as well as taking care of the clubs from the top to the bottom of the pyramid. And I think commercial considerations will come into play in early to mid 2026 that will also determine other elements, but one step at a time, and we're not there at this step yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We have the pleasure to move now to China from Xinhua News Agency. We have Shan Lei, who is joining us. If you're able to join, and there you go. If you can unmute and activate. There you go. Hello.
You're on mute.
You just need to unmute and you're good to go.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. I'm Shanley from Xinhua News Agency of China. Andrew, nice to meet you again. I have a question about the World Cup qualifying format in 2027. FIBA released the new men's world ranking right after the first window was closed last week.
Yes.
And FIFA also emphasized that the point that every national teams collected will have a deduction of 1/3 before every major tournament during the qualifying. So does it mean FIFA might update the world ranking more often next year? And could you give us more details about how important the world ranking in the new qualifying format? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. The ranking will be, I'll say a few words about the ranking and how it works and then the importance, perhaps. This is not a major overhaul of the ranking, but we have cleaned up some elements of it. One of the elements is the points are cumulative. So the more you play and the better results you have, the better. Because in the past, we had some very exceptional, very few cases, but still a statistical issue we had to fix, that in some cases, a team that was going directly to the next phase was getting fewer ranking points rather than someone who was playing a qualification to quarterfinal than those who won the group and went directly to the quarterfinal. So that is fixed. And when you advance in the competition, you also get more points. The second element is no longer an 8-year ranking, but we'll be discounting in a way that is fair to everyone before the competition. Why before the competition? I go now to the importance of the ranking. The ranking is very important on the draw. The draw of the World Cup takes place based on the ranking. Host pot 1 and then 1 to 32 or 1 to 31 to be exact. So that is where ranking is very important. That is why in the qualification to the World Cup in Doha, the world ranking change plays no role, because the next time the men's teams will be affected by the world ranking is after they have qualified to Doha, when we make the draw for Doha. And after we make the draw, just before we start in Doha, we will shave some points off of everyone in a fair and equal way, so that we don't arrive to 1 million points, but it will be just a question of refreshing. This allows us to show to the teams that the more successful you are recently, the better draws you will get, and the better you will have chances to go into the big tournaments further. Because right after the World Cup, as you know, those who go directly to the Olympics will have the Olympic draw, and those who go to the Olympic qualification tournament, we have the Olympic qualification tournament draw. And if you remember from before Paris, we ended up, because of how the ranking was and how some teams had not performed very well in the past. We had in Greece a group of death, having Slovenia and Greece and Croatia and Dominicana and New Zealand together with Egypt. So this is where we say the ranking plays a role primarily for the draws. But during the next 18 months, it will only help teams accumulate. Last sentence on the ranking. When we started, just before the window, we didn't deduct points from anybody. Everybody started accumulating more points. So the more you win now and the better you perform, the better your ranking will be in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I hope I clarified. It's not a simple one. We have mathematician experts working on it, and people much smarter than me.
Yeah, and you have a FAQ on the website under the ranking if you want to get to know more. And of course, if you have further questions, we are happy to help at FIBA Communications. We can move now back to France. Pascal Legendre.
No,
sorry.
Mr. Jablonski.
Sorry, we have Edvinas Jablonskis before from Basket News. You appeared exactly at the right moment. Thank you. Edvinas, floor is yours.
Thank you for having the time, Andreas. And I just want to follow up on the question about the NBA players being able to join the qualifiers. And I just want to
I
confirm.
didn't say that, no? I said
Oh.
the players who play in the new league. That was the question.
Okay then. Okay, then I'll rephrase. So
So I
basically,
give you the time to put another one.
given that FIBA is closely working with the NBA and its expansion to Europe now, have FIBA held any conversations with the NBA about their players' availability in the qualifiers, whether it's World Cup, Eurobasket, Afrobasket during the club season? And at the same time, can European clubs expect higher buyout clauses paid to them by NBA teams for their players? Thank you.
I think on the first one, we do not expect a change in the way FIBA itself planned the qualifiers. It was planned since the beginning that in the in-season windows, we will play with everyone who is licensed with a FIBA club around the world. And this was a decision of the Congress of FIBA. So all national federations agreed to that and said, this is the way we will be playing. And of course, you know that in the summer windows, meaning the July and August, we have all players available, including players who participate in the NBA. The second part you mentioned, now I didn't take a note, was
about the buyout clauses.
About the buyout. So the buyout is two elements. The contractual, there is a FIBA NBA agreement which protects our clubs in the FIBA ecosystem. What does this mean? The player cannot play for an NBA team if he had a contract, a validly binding contract with the FIBA team. A letter of clearance by FIBA to the NBA is needed. Therefore, if a player has a contract and the contract has a buyout clause X, whatever X is, this amount has to be paid. Whether this amount is 900,000 or whether this amount is 10 million, this amount has to be paid in order for the player to be released by FIBA and be able to be registered with the team in the NBA. So the question of the price of the buyout depends entirely on the negotiation between the player and the FIBA team. Now, we all know that the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the clubs in the NBA says that the NBA teams can pay whatever they want for a buyout, whatever they can, but a certain amount of that will not count as salary, so will not be part of what counts against the salary cap of a team. So I want to be very clear. What people say it's the NBA buyout defined by the NBA is not the NBA buyout. The NBA buyout for a player who plays in a FIBA team is defined by the player and his team. Have we seen NBA teams paying more than this amount that is in the NBA collective bargaining agreement to FIBA teams? Yes, especially when they had room in their salary cap, they paid more. Or if they wanted the player a lot, they paid more. Is this figure in the collective bargaining agreement affecting the negotiation between players and teams? It does, and I know that. But this is collectively bargained and applies for as long as the collective bargaining agreement applies, and that's not something that FIBA can change bilaterally with the NBA. So I gave you the answer on the NBA buyouts, that the amount depends on how much the club and the player will want. That's why sometimes we have seen the players paying from their pocket the additional amount when the NBA said, I don't want to pay that amount. I'm very sensitive to this, not only because I was, as you know, as a lawyer before coming to FIBA representing players, never as an agent, but working for the players in representing their interests. And one of the elements we are working on, but I will be able to tell you more, I think, in early 2026 is not buyout, but it is a mechanism whereby clubs that develop players get compensated for when the players arrive at the top level. FIBA is working on that. I think I've said it before. I will be able to present something to the Central Board of FIBA by spring, and then I'm sure I'll be able to say more to you. We're working on that, and that will be a major investment, of course, on our part and perhaps for partners in that respect. But the problem of the buyout that you mentioned is the following. Buyout is received only by the last team. And if you ask me, what are the major complaints that I have? Yes, of course, when we meet with our top clubs, they complain about this. They say, if the NBA, there was no limit, we would negotiate whatever we wanted with our players. This limit affects us. But I get an equal amount of complaints from other FIBA clubs against the top FIBA clubs that they get the players for almost nothing. No? And that sometimes the players at the age of 16, 17 are taken in a very abrupt way from a smaller club to go to a bigger club or to a club connected to an agent, unfortunately, so that this last club is the one that takes the buyout from the NBA, regardless if this is a big buyout or a small buyout. And this second part is very delicate for us because I may be unhappy that some of our top clubs, whether this is Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, Efes, Fenerbahce, Zalgiris, etc., or Alba Berlin, Galatasaray, Malaga, etc., do not get enough from the buyouts. But below, the pyramid that produces players is much broader. And our job is to ensure fair compensation of those who work in the base of the platform for when the player makes the first step, which is the big FIBA club before it goes to the NBA. So we have to work on both elements. And we have raised both elements with the NBA and, of course, with ECA. And I'm telling you, this is part of our agenda clearly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edvinas. I'm happy that you were able to get this question because very interesting answer. And now we can go to Pascal Legendre, Basket Europe. Pascal, bonjour. You just need to unmute and activate your camera, and you will appear on the screen. There you go.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Pascal Legendre from Basket Europe. I have a question about women's basketball. With the new Women's World Cup format with 16 teams, how relevant are the Women's World Cup qualifying tournament? Qualifying 11 teams plus 5 teams already qualified out of 24 participants.
Thank you very much. I appreciate very much. And I was asking Patrick if we can prioritize for next time. This time, the questions on women's basketball. Perhaps we do this next year. Merci beaucoup for your interest. So, playing 16 in the World Cup is good. We can say we went back to 16, but what is really the innovation is 24 in the qualifiers. Exactly what you described. We play 4 groups of 6. Now, the first element is what we do with the Continental Cup champions. And it was clear by the board that the link in the women's is much different than the link in the men's, because in the men's we play an 18-month process for the qualification, while in the women we play a tournament of a few days. The innovation here, and where I believe, yes, it makes sense, is that you have a round-robin tournament of 5 games. So women's basketball will grow the way we want it to grow only if national team competitions arrive closer to the level of the men's national team competitions. The leagues, and Our European zone does a fantastic job with the EuroLeague women. There's no doubt. Our leagues are a great product, but will always be a great niche product. The women's national team competition is where you see in the front page of Gazzetta dello Sport, and you see that Italy won a medal in women's sport, and that it was in basketball. Or you see in L'Equipe the same when the French team loses because Gabi is wearing perhaps 2 shoes a size bigger and steps on the line, and it counts for 2 and not for 3 points in the final of the Olympic Games. So our idea is more competition for the women, and that's why we moved the tournament to 16 and the qualification to 24. Now, in each of these tournaments, there is a champion that is already qualified, but will play, and they play because, in the summer, it's a WNBA season, and the teams will not have a lot of time to prepare for the World Cup. So these tournaments are fundamental for their preparation. Yes, in the tournament of Villeurbanne, we have also the hosts, so we have 2 teams qualified, but this will be, I can tell you, a tremendous tournament based on its quality. I am very optimistic that we will see a great spectacle on all tournaments, and I think the round robin, the 5 games, 5 home games, every evening that we have games, the home team is playing, will change totally the nature of these tournaments, which I remind you is an extended window. It's 11 days, no longer only 9 days. So we're very optimistic about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. We move now to Russia with Maria Kapustina from Oko Sports. Not sure if it's a woman in basketball question, but it's a woman asking. So, Maria, if you can accept the invitation to join as panelist, and then go through the exercise of unmuting and also then activating your camera. There you go. I see you appearing on the screen. So hopefully technology will help us in making this happen. Can you hear us, Maria? There is a problem with your microphone. Maybe you can ask your question in the Q&A, and we'll try to ask it to the Secretary General, so we can make sure that we have it. So we can move then to the Philippines with Ivan Stewart Saldajeno from Dugout. So we change a bit continent and also the vibe. So my colleagues here are trying to make sure that Ivan can join us and ask his question to the Secretary General. There you go. I see you. You're appearing on the screen, so it's perfect.
There you go.
Good evening.
Good evening from Los Baños, Philippines, Sir Patrick. Thank you as well to you and to Sir Andreas. So I have a question. Although I have to divert a bit from the NBA Europe thing and the ranking thing, because one of the topics that was that talk of a town earlier today when it was first reported by us is that the new passport eligibility rule in which you change it from 16 to 18. And with that said, will this be retroactive? Like, for example, there are some players here in the Philippines that were affected by the old rule. They weren't able to make to Gilas because they got their passport after turning 16. But will they be allowed this time as long as they can prove that they got their passport for turning 18?
Thank you for the question. The new rule does not apply retroactively. So players who have been declared eligible under certain rule will not be reevaluated, but applies as of last Friday for any new applications for new players that we have not determined the national status. I need to be clear on that. It is an important decision of the Central Board looking at today's world. And it was supported, of course, not only by the former chair and president of the federation, a member of the Central Board, Mr. Pandilio, but also by the executive director who chairs the legal commission of FIBA. I think it is a new balance in the eligibility, considering especially the large migration flows around the world in today's society. So no retroactive application. And I would like also to say one more thing, because I just mentioned women's basketball. I think it's the first time Philippines will play a Women's World Cup qualifier in March. And that is a very talented and brave team of Gilas. We call the men. I hope one day we will call Perlas, the team of women, and that they have their chance to play at the top level where they deserve, like the men's equivalent has done.
All right, thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Thank you. Salamat po.
Thank you. And we can move back to Europe. We go to Serbia. From Mondo, we have Nemanja Stanojcic joining us for the next question.
Hello there. I know, can you hear me? Great. First of all, greetings from Serbia, and thank you for taking time to answer all of our questions. I have my one question about basketball 3x3. You mentioned how important it is that the expansion got for Los Angeles and from 8 to 12 teams. What are your plans when it comes to development of 3x3 basketball, and how important are the things that happen, like in this Eurobasket, when we had a player of Aleksandar Lazic, who is primarily a 3x3 player, who played for Bosnia and played very, very good. So how much does that also affect the way of importance of basket 3x3 as it can show like that?
Thank you. Very, very interesting question. I think I would start with the players. And I will tell you that we have arrived at a level of specialization in the men that I consider it not impossible, but extremely difficult for someone who plays basketball to switch overnight and start playing 3x3. I was in Manama in Bahrain for the World Tour final, and I can tell you the type of movement on the court and the physiology of the preparation, it's so anaerobic 3x3 that these cross functions, playing sometimes basketball, sometimes 3x3, are, I would say, almost a past or big exception in men's and gradually also in women. So the specialization is going higher and higher. The product is becoming more and more valuable, both for sponsors. As you saw, 3x3 signed a new sports apparel sponsor last week, a Swiss company. And we also see this on the impact on social media, where if you rank all the international federations after football and basketball and perhaps cricket, 5th or 6th of all international federation, if you take 3x3 alone, would be the 5th biggest international Olympic federation. And many, almost 50% of the people who follow FIBA 3x3 are not following FIBA on the social media, which is a tremendous, I would say, data point. Development on 2 levels. One, for us, and important for you, the media, to understand and pass the message, specialization in 3x3 does not happen early. It happens between 18 and 23. That is the age where we focus, and that's where we invest in the FIBA 3x3 Youth Nations League, where almost 100 countries played this year. And that is where we source the players. 7 of those players won a medal in Tokyo, and more of them, I don't remember exactly the number, it's more than 10, were in the semifinals in Paris. One of the gold Olympic medalists of Netherlands was discovered in the FIBA Youth Nations League with an under-23 team, or under-21. These are the 2 levels in the Youth Nations League. So that's one part of our development. Why? Because all the players aspire to become professional basketball players. It is at 18, 19 where is really the moment of understanding where is my future. I can play the Olympics here. I can be a professional 3x3 World Tour player and earn quite a lot of money. Second element of 3x3 development, the new 4 spots have opened a lot government and Olympic Committee investments into 3x3. So only this year, we've had 15 nations from the Pacific playing 3x3 in the Pacific Games and going like this upward in the world rankings. Tomorrow, we are starting this in the Caribbean. Please remember, we have 212 members, and some of them are of a population below 1 million. These are the countries that eventually will focus as a priority to 3x3. That does not mean that our biggest countries do not focus. Of course they do. And the third and last point I would like to mention to you, after I told you also Youth Nations League, Pacific, Caribbean, Africa development. The third element is the example of Mongolia. You probably remember Mongolia women played in Tokyo, and everybody said, well, it's the first Olympics. You will have, some called it, in a bad way, in my opinion, an accident. Well, guess what? The men's were one shot away from qualifying to Paris. And the women in the summer, 5 months ago, played the final of the 3x3 World Cup, on the way beating USA, beating China, and beating Poland to play the final against Netherlands. And we saw how 3x3 brought, in a small country, basketball on the front of the newspapers. Then we got a new basketball venue, and Mongolia started now being much stronger on basketball side. On their traditional side, they organize under 16 Asia Cup, and their champion plays in the East Asia Super League and is one of the best teams in East Asia now. So this cross-fertilization, I would say, is something entirely new. It surprised us. And we will see this also on all 5 continents, also in Europe. I expect this. And the example of Netherlands being Olympic gold medalists in men and world and European champions in women will bring us the same benefit as we saw already in the last window with a full house in Den Haag.
Thank you so much for your answer. If I may, just one short question, and I know you said another one later, but just one short question. You mentioned NBA, FIBA Europe. My only question is Serbia in those plans? Because we have a lot of speculation which countries are going to be part, how things are going to do. Is Serbia on the map? Because we saw Partizan Red Star and the fans and everything. You watch probably the games and everything. So is Serbia on the map for FIBA, NBA?
I don't think it's the role of the FIBA Secretary General to participate in such speculation. I have to be honest with you. And I'm not saying this in an arrogant or egoistic way. I want to answer your question. So I will try to answer it differently. This is FIBA and this is basketball. And if you visit the house, you will understand what Serbia means for this house just by looking at the museum. I don't need to say much more.
Thank you, Emania. We can go back to Oko Sport, and hopefully this time with a bit more success with Artem Taltikov joining us on the panel for the next question. Artem, good afternoon.
Hello, guys. Hello, Andreas. Another question about the 3x3 basketball. So
yes.
3x3 just growing up when they took part of the Olympic program just in Tokyo and Paris. So what do you think about the development of the 3x3 and the World Tour, FIBA World Tour generally? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the World Tour has arrived at a very high level of maturity. We are up to 18 events. We have the opener, special opener in Japan, as you know. We have then between 14 and 16 events, and then the final. That is for the men's side. And for the women's, the season is a bit shorter, but still, although it has a shorter life as a competition, the prize money goes upwards. And for the men, it has surpassed 5 million. But of course, it's almost now close to 15 years. And in women, in the 5th year, it's surpassing, I believe, next season, 1.8, almost 2 million. So noting that our women players also play basketball in their vast majority. I believe the innovation of 2025 was the Champions Cup, which is the start of the season of the national teams. In February, we had a tremendous event in Bangkok. I must say, one of the most impressive 3x3 basketball events. I remind you, basketball invites the fan to the arena. 3x3 is going where the fans are in the center of the city. And that's exactly what happened in Bangkok. I believe we will see between now and 2030 a further increase in the prize money for both men and women. Our goal is to really professionalize their structures. You know, they have they don't have a coach, at least during the game, but they do have team managers. They travel more carefully. They take care of themselves much better. I can tell you the quality of the play is much higher now. The highlights are fantastic, and that's why it is sold well. Now it is our job also to upgrade the commercialization so that we produce more in order to distribute to the players. And as I said earlier, the increase of the Olympic quota is cross-fertilizing, is helping us find new markets. And I do expect us, for example, we're back in South America. We had one challenger. Next year, we will have 3 challengers, hopefully a world tour. We're back in Europe in some markets with big events. And I do expect us to have a challenger also in Africa. North America will continue being there. And of course, Asia and Southeast Asia, both West and Southeast, are very strong. On the way to Brisbane, don't forget, next Olympics after Los Angeles is Australia. And that is where we have now a hole in the map, or a black spot, a shadow in the map. And we will have a candle that will become a strong light there as well. I think the response of the fans is what encourages us to invest more, and invest more means invest more in our players. So we are focusing on this, and it was given to me 10 minutes before I get into this press conference, and to show you how much we believe in basketball as a lifestyle. This is the Elle magazine, and Elle magazine, it's a fashion magazine, but these are our 3x3 players, and these are our stars. Maybe not recognizable to everyone on this call, but these are our Olympians. And such a brand did not request the women players of the Women's World Cup, requested the 3x3 players that play in the women's series. And I consider this a big signal for the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's a perfect timing actually to bring the question of Maria Capustina, that we had technical problem. It's actually also about women. It's about the Women's World Cup next year. So what new features can we expect for this new edition? That's the question.
Well, I will start with the draw. I think we will have, I cannot say much, but we will have a unique setting for the draw on the 21st of April. The board of FIBA has decided that the level of investment will be unprecedented. We have decided to invest in the teams that play in the qualifiers, as well as in the preparation of the teams that go to the World Cup. We've decided to invest in the draw together with the hosts, the German Basketball Federation. We will be working for activation in the city of Berlin, a capital of one of the biggest economies, and a city with a fantastic atmosphere and ambiance, as you know. I would say features. We play in 2 venues, and the smallest of the 2 has a capacity of 9,000. That's a first. I will tell you that for the first time, the sales, I cannot say numbers yet, but I can tell you that the sales of tickets are more advanced than in any other FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup in history. I can also tell you we will have a single room policy for the first time for our players, sponsored by FIBA, an investment by us to bring the best possible conditions for our players. We will have painted courts, first time ever as well. Same exact conditions between Manila 23 and Berlin 26, or Doha 27 for the men. We are working on some elements on the presentation for the final phase in the Berlin arena. And I'm glad to say that we're counting also on the great community network of our federation and of Alba Berlin that has invested quite interestingly, almost uniquely, for this level of competition in the women's team in such a great way. So I am very optimistic we will have a Women's World Cup like no other.
Thank you for Maria. And we move to Italy. We have Fabrizio Cicciarelli from Il Tempo, who will join us. Fabrizio, if you can hear us, the floor is yours once you have unmuted and activated your camera.
I think I'm in. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. December will be a crucial time for the discussion for NBA Europe for the discussion between the possible investors and the advisors, and how FIBA is involved in the whole process, especially in setting up criteria like the entering fee, the structures for attendance amount for having a female team, and if you have updates or you in how many time you expect a turning point. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have to be very, very clear that FIBA is not going to determine that in terms of the financials of entry of teams in the new project. And as I told you, I'm very focused right now, together with our European leadership, Mr. Garbajosa, Mr. Novak, of course, the CEO of the BCL, under the leadership of our president, Sheikh Saud bin Ali Al Thani, to work on the structure, and to work on what the structure of competitions would look like, and to see how every team can have a spot in the new ecosystem. But if you tell me, does FIBA decide whether it is Team A or Team B? The answer is no. And both, we do not want to have this role, because it would not be correct from my side when I sit at the table with my colleagues from ECA and the 13 clubs that own a competition and have a license there, to looking at them in the eyes and say, yes, I can try to bring everyone together, but at the same time, I'm sitting on the other side to decide who is going to play in the new league. No, I'm not doing that. FIBA is not doing that. Of course, we know that teams that play in the BCL have expressed their willingness, and they also come to us to express their willingness. Alba Berlin and Galatasaray are two of the prime examples of that. We have, of course, the champions, Unicaja Malaga, and others that are interested. And as I told you, our job is to take care of the entire ecosystem. Whether it's December or January, I would let you decide this. But I do believe we have still work to do on trying to bring everyone together. And we have a lot of work to do in shaping this new competition in a way that makes sense for everyone in the European basketball ecosystem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie, Fabrizio. And we move to Martin Ross from Sport Business. Martin, hopefully you can hear us and ask your question. Good afternoon, Martin.
Hi, guys. You see me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Andres. Question
Hello.
on global media rights. I mean, a while ago, FIBA Media extended its national team qualifiers rights production deal with DAZN from 2034 to 2041. That's a long way into the future. I suppose DAZN as a company is changing a lot year to year. What was the motivation on the FIBA side to renew? I don't believe there was a kind of open process for these rights. I mean, why do it now? Was it a case of locking down revenues and financial security a long way into the future?
Definitely locking down financial security, and a partner that has been a very, very good partner to FIBA. I think, first of all, it is a question of the right partner, and it's a question of the right model. And you know that on both these elements, with Performed and DAZN, FIBA, I believe, has been lucky in having next to us someone who understands, likes basketball, and invests in basketball. Number two, the model has worked. It is, as you know, an innovative model that is turning 10 years old next year, with FIBA Media being a joint venture between us and DAZN, and having taken care not only of the media rights sales, which have been positive for us and the central board has appreciated, but also of what I mentioned earlier, top class production of signal at the level that FIBA had never imagined. I told you we delivered 75 games from Chile to Guam over 5 days with a production team of DAZN or FIBA Media that I think deserves our recognition and public acknowledgement under the leadership of Andrew Ryan. So the central board evaluated the stage of the relationship, evaluated also the future challenges that will eventually come, like they do always in the media rights landscape, and decided that both the model and the partner are the right ones to take us hand by hand into the next decade. So that is what I can tell you. I can also tell you that I had the pleasure of receiving just a few weeks ago in our house Sir Len Blavatnik and Shay Segev, owner and CEO respectively, majority owner and CEO respectively of DAZN. And I can tell you their commitment to basketball is unequivocal. And this is exactly the message that I conveyed to the central board recently at our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. We move now to Arina Ershova from Championat. Arina, welcome. You can ask a question.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Zagklis. Thanks for having me today. I have a question regarding Russian national team. In a recent statement regarding Russian and Belarusian national team suspension, FIBA announced that it will be ready to enact extraordinary competition measures if political climate improves before the 2028 Olympics to ensure that those teams still have a chance to participate. So could you please explain what was meant by extraordinary measures and whether FIBA already has a plan regarding those? Because we know that the Olympics qualification process is subject to a set of strict rules that has been long established.
Correct. You're very right. Just one correction. We didn't say when the political situation allows so, as we said when circumstances allow so, because there are a number of factors that can change around us. It all started, as you remember, with a recommendation from the IOC as well. No? We also need to see the IOC position, and that's why we'll have another meeting on the back of the IOC session in Milano Cortina. That will be in mid-February to discuss that. I think what we try to say is that the basketball calendar has been built in an intertwined way. The competitions are linked to each other. And in a cycle that has already started, if and when, and the expectation is that this may happen in the near to mid-term, a decision for integration of the Russian and Belarusian national teams is taken. We do not want the basketball players to have a disadvantage compared to the players, to the athletes of other team Olympic sports, simply because of the way our calendar is structured. As of today, because the calendar is structured in such a way with the qualifiers, we know that Russia and Belarus cannot play the Eurobasket Women 2027 because qualification started 2 weeks ago and they're not in there. And we know that Russia and Belarus cannot play the FIBA Basketball World Cup for the men in Doha, in Qatar in 2027. So they're also not possible, the women, to play the Women's World Cup in 26. So we do not have them, even if last week the board would have reinstated them, we would not be able to have them in the 2 major or 3 major events of 26 and 27. there remains 28 Los Angeles. And we know from other sports that other sports, because their calendar is different, have the possibility to reintegrate them much later than we do. So the central board has discussed and said, when the time comes, we may have to change the structure of a qualification, not of a competition, but we may have to change the structure of a qualification process in order to accommodate the athletes of these two countries. And then, yes, there are many plans, but these are all plans that are subject to change. I had the pleasure of discussing, of course, after the meeting with the member of the board who didn't participate in this discussion, legally had to be excused, Andrei Kirilenko, and he asked me the same question, and I said, Andrei, we have iterations of what we could do, but these are all subject to the timing. And there will be a moment that it will be too late. I can tell you that. We cannot bring Russia and Belarus back to the Olympic qualification process for LA if that comes very late. What is too late? I do not know today, because we have not gone that far. But we do have plans to see how we restructure the qualifiers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. And we can now go back to Greece. We go to Aspasia Pelokani from Athens, Macedonia News Agency. Aspasia.
Hello,
Excuse my
hello.
pronunciation.
Well,
the floor is yours.
let me say Aspasia Velonaki so that it's on record correct, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Mr. Zagklis, Kyrie Andreas Zagklis. Hello, Mr. Köhler. Although most of my, all the questions have been asked from the dear colleagues, I will ask you about NBA Europe. Our sport, basketball, is the second most popular sport. 270 million fans are watching it on the continent in Europe. It's even growing faster than football, but the combined value of the leagues and the national teams is less than 0.5% in terms of sports industry, of money being made. So under this, why is NBA coming to Europe? And why FIBA wants to cooperate with NBA? What does FIBA want to take? Of course, we know NBA has the top players, the show, but I would like, Mr. Zagklis, your thoughts about how our sport can compete with football, and whereas this is one of the reasons you are cooperating with the NBA.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for saying our sport, because you showed your allegiance. I think it makes little sense for me to make comparisons. And you mentioned the commercial gap that is disproportionate to the popularity gap and the fandom gap. I would like to make a distinction, however, that we're not just interested in adding a zero and making just the top clubs richer. And I told them from the beginning that I entered these discussions together with my colleagues from our European regional office. We said, we want you to make more money, whether this is in a FIBA, ECA agreement, or in another constellation like the one you described. For us, you close the gap when a bigger amount of clubs around Europe have the hope, I will say differently, when a larger group of clubs in Europe have a viable business plan. And this business plan is connected to the hope of playing in the top and to the business opportunity of playing at the top of the pyramid. You will not only close the gap by saying, well, to our friends at ECA, you could have sold this for 1 billion instead of 100 million, or instead of 50 million, 500 million. That's not the mathematical that's not the mathematics of FIBA. FIBA is a non-for-profit, and our job is to raise funds and reinvest them into the sport for its development. We do not have shareholders. We have member federations and their leagues and their clubs. So our job is to grow indeed this industry, which is the basketball industry, as part of the bigger sports industry in Europe, that basketball gets a relative much bigger piece of the pie, but that is a piece of the pie that invites investment not only in the top, but also in the second, in the middle tier, and in the bottom of the pyramid. That is our job, and you can ask the NBA why they are interested, but I tell you, this is why FIBA is interested.
And if I am allowed about women's basketball, since I am a woman, although you've answered many times about the World Cup in 2026, we showed in Paris Olympic Games 2024, the gender parity, first time ever 50-50, and then FIFA's World Cup, again in soccer, Women's World Cup, is the top sport in the world, you know. So ahead of, again, I'll say our World Cup, basketball's World Cup in Berlin, what are the aims? You know, what are your expectations? Where do you set the bar?
I think parity in basketball is not news, as I said, since 1996. And I would like to say that FIBA is one of the very few sports, basketball, where the men's World Cup started in 1950 and the women's in 1953 in the same Olympic cycle. And yes, it took us time to convince the IOC to bring women into the Olympics from 36 to 76. And when we did that, we reduced the men in order to have the women in. We had many more than 12 teams in men up until Montreal. Munich was a bigger tournament and before that. My expectations for Berlin and those of the FIBA Central Board are an event that breaks into the mainstream. That is how I would describe our role. I don't like the word momentum, because momentum is created and then lost. I don't think the term momentum is the right term for women's basketball. Women's basketball has entered a new era, the era that the average basketball fan will turn on the TV and enjoy a basketball game of women for its speed, for its skill, for the artistic way that our players are moving, are passing, the accuracy, and the way they are delivering a great spectacle, which is a different, sometimes, product from the men. And I repeat what I said at the finals in Piraeus, this is the ultimate family product. If you ask me, this is the ultimate family product, and we want many families to be in the venue in Berlin and many families to watch on the screen. And that is definitely one of our biggest aims for the FIBA Basketball World Cup for the women in Berlin 2026.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seems we have more people that line up. I think there are so many questions, but thank you.
Water,
Thank you, Andreas, for taking the time, and we will stay in Greece. We have Apolostos Kotsas from sdna.gr. Apolostos, I see you arriving on the screen. So if you can unmute yourself, exactly, and there you go.
Okay, I understand. This is Tolis Kodzias, yes. Okay. Good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Zagklis. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask you about NBA Europe. The first question is if we can have together the best duo in the world except NBA, Olympiacos and Panathinaikos. And if we have some details about the qualifying tournament.
Yes, I said earlier that I don't want to speculate for teams, and there is no doubt of the success of the Greek teams in the EuroLeague with so many titles. Some of them, of course, at the times of the FIBA EuroLeague or the European Cup for champions of FIBA. So I will not speculate, but I do believe that all the clubs have a chance of being in the ecosystem, and then it's a question of conditions and how they see their future as well in terms of investment. And there are certain conditions that the NBA has mentioned already from their side, from arenas to cities, etc., etc. That is not something that FIBA is going to discuss in all honesty with you. And I explained earlier why, because at the same time, we need to talk to our teams and maintain our relationship, help them grow, help them get stronger, and also be able to look in the face of our colleagues at ECA, with whom we have, and we try to improve a steady relationship. Your next question, as you see, I'm getting a bit tired, was about the qualifier.
Qualifying
Yes.
tournament. Yeah.
The qualifying tournament, that's part of our job. That's part of, it's connected, as you understand, to BCL and what FIBA is not only promoting, but what FIBA represents in the ecosystem. That is where I believe we will see elements of ranking. That's where we will see elements of historic success. That's where we will see elements of success of the domestic leagues and of their clubs in the European club competitions. That's where we will see broader openness. Because it's one thing to say 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 spots coming from the second tier, and it's an entirely different thing to say 1 or 2 or 3 spots coming through a qualifying tournament, which opens the funnel, which opened the channel of qualification. And we have to fit it in the calendar, and therefore it cannot be, as you can imagine, an extremely stretched tournament for a longer period of time. Yes, in an ideal world, we can imagine a March Madness or a June Madness for that, but I can tell you this would be a much shorter endeavor. We will work with our partners, and it is the calendar, the job of FIBA, to balance the interests and see that part also before we start the national team competitions, so that the teams can play, win, and then be able to make a budget and fix and create a roster during the summer, so that they know where they play the following season. These are the elements that are for us fundamental: the calendar aspect, the openness aspect. Now, don't ask me please yet if this will be 5 or 6 or 8 different countries together with the next best ranked of the BCL. We are still working on this, and it will be fair also to the other stakeholders that first we consult, we work together, and then we're able to come to you and tell you how it would look. But I think I gave you the principles, and I think that's what matters for FIBA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We go to France. Back to France. We have Laurie Verrier from AFP joining us for the next question. And we have another 10 minutes after this. Hopefully we can accommodate a couple more. Laurie, on vous entend. Bonjour.
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 Hi, everyone. Thank you for the meeting. I had another question about the NBA FIBA project in Europe. You already gave us some details a few minutes ago, but can you tell us what the next steps will be in 2026? When you talk about the development of the structure, I think there will be other meetings with clubs, with EuroLeague. What will be the next steps? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I definitely foresee several more meetings. As I said, we need to eventually go to the FIBA Central Board and say how this would look, because it's very nice to tell you about our plans and very transparent on our part, sometimes perhaps too transparent, but we have taken a decision since the beginning. This is not happening behind curtains or behind closed doors. This is evolving, and for every step of the process, we are informing our community, our basketball community. Yes, I do expect also more meetings with ECA, and you know, in the meetings, we do not only discuss this. Yes, of course, this is fundamental and crucial, but we have other elements that we've been discussing with our clubs, the NCAA, or the developments on the college basketball, you know, or regulations of FIBA that affect their daily life. And we've managed, through the good lobbying, I have to admit, of the ECA leadership, to change some things in the regulations of agents, for example, or to improve the FIBA insurance, or to improve the communication for the release of players before the windows. And these are things that happened thanks to the partnership, no? At least the improving relationship. And we will discuss all these for sure as well. And I do expect, certainly, that we talk about the next steps in the process. As I told you, I think it was the answer to the second question. We had a big opportunity that we all collectively missed. And since then, we're trying to bring everyone again together. It's not easy. I don't want also to get together just to talk and then just for you to write there is another meeting. We need to meet in order to have specific objectives, agendas, and conclusions. And I repeat, we will be the last who will give up on this effort of bringing everyone together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for a couple of questions. Please, I would kindly ask you if you have other topics. I think the NBA Euro project has been addressed at length with a lot of questions. I want to make sure we give also the opportunity to everyone to talk about other topics. And we go to Christian Garcia from Spain. To Playbook. Christian Garcia from Spain. Appearing now.
Yes.
Hola.
Hello. Hola.
Hello. Hola.
Hello. My question is also about the NBA, the European NBA League. In these talks with NBA, it's on the table the possibility of creating new, let's say, international competitions or integrating NBA teams to the Intercontinental Cup. And also, will you be in favor of having European or African teams for the BAL playing in the NBA Cup or the NBA playoffs in the future, as it has been suggested?
You said NBA League in Europe. I do not consider this an NBA league.
Yeah.
To the extent this happens, and I said I believe it will happen, but I do not consider this an NBA competition. This is a competition operating within the framework of FIBA. That is an important clarification. And secondly, you asked about iterations of that. For FIBA, the number one international club competition is the Intercontinental Cup. The Intercontinental Cup brings the champions of the 4 continents plus the champion of NBL, so BCL Americas, BCL Europe, BAL, BCL Asia, and the NBL, and the champion before now, G League United, given the calendar that it's taken place. That is the maximum competition. That is a competition that started in the 60s, then was interrupted for reasons of getting closer to the NBA at the time, playing the McDonald's, etc. And this is the competition that used to be Europe, South America, and has now evolved into a real world level. I would not say World Cup, but in effect, it is our World Cup of clubs. This is a priority for us. We're not interested in something else. We believe that the champion of a new league, as it could have been the champion of EuroLeague as well, playing in that competition, the champion of a new league would play in the FIBA Intercontinental Cup. Now, whether and to what extent one can see Friendlies have been played in the past. Games between FIBA teams and NBA teams have been played in the past. I have not been part of such discussions yet, and I guess it will not be responsible from my side when we have such crucial topics on the table now to discuss what could happen in the future about a team joining the NBA. I do not consider this a serious approach from us, and I do not consider it a serious approach by honestly anyone when we have such a big topic on the table, which is the future of the European club competition landscape, to discuss the cup or the in-season tournament or friendlies. There will be always, and we have been supportive of these exchanges, whether this is a game of the NBA before the season starts in some of our FIBA markets with local teams or between two NBA teams. We've been supportive, and we will continue to be supportive on that together with our partners in the NBA. But you're asking me now to think of something or to even speculate on something which is, honestly speaking, not at all a priority for FIBA. It should not be at all a priority for anybody in the ecosystem right now. We have the ICC on the top, and we need to sort out what's happening in Europe. And that is our focus. And I have not been, I repeat, part of any discussions for anything further than that.
Okay,
Thank you.
And you asked about Africa, and I have to insist, one of the principles that we have requested and the NBA has accepted also publicly is that only teams from members of FIBA in Europe would participate in such league. Therefore, this answers your question about African or other leagues, other teams.
Thank you. We have time for the last two questions. We have Orazio Cauci joining us from Basket News Italy. Orazio, welcome to this press conference. The floor is yours. You need to unmute. There you go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Zagklis. Thank you for your time. I wanted to ask a question about the current situation with British basketball. What's the current evaluation of the recent turmoil that has been present in the British basketball, considering also that most recently the British Basketball Federation has been went into liquidation? And in your opinion, what are the necessary next steps that needs to be taken in order to, let's say, normalize and stabilize that situation?
First, what have we done up to now? We intervened because there was a clear lack of governance on the men's club competition side. And with lack of governance, I mean, it is not possible that a license is given to a league that will start in 2 years, and the league that operates now has no license and should be outlawed overnight. We have clubs, we have a community, we need to be able to work with them, not simply pretend that we can outlaw them overnight and throw them out of the system. So that is our job, to not only protect them, but also bring them back to the FIBA regulatory framework, which they have accepted, and that's why they have received this license from FIBA. 1. 2, this happened thanks to a huge work by the president of FIBA Europe, the executive director, and the FIBA senior director, Mr. Garbajosa, Mr. Novak, Mr. Radovic, together with UK Sport and with the home nations. The home nations, the 3 regional or home nations federations. I should be very careful in my terminology here. Basketball England, Basketball Wales, Basketball Scotland. This is a project very close to my heart. As you know, British Basketball Project was part of the conditions of joining the Olympic Games with a British team. Next step, we need a well-governed, strong and functioning British Basketball Federation. We will not accept any other constellation in the governance there. So we will with the help of the government, recreate this. The home nations have very responsible leaderships that are doing a very good job on the ground, and they understand that British basketball is there to represent the country and inspire the generations. We have an ever-growing basketball community. The participation numbers in the UK are fantastic, and that's why the government supports the project. I do believe that we need to have a stronger league gradually, and both on the men's and the women's side. And there is no doubt, as I mentioned earlier, that all these discussions with NBA about Europe have animated the mid-tier to receive more investment. When the mid-tier that has been told for almost 20 years, you don't belong to the top, suddenly wakes up and says, I can make it to the top, there is definitely the case that we will have growing pains because new capital wants to come and be injected, which will be challenging the existing structures. Why? Because we say any club that plays in the top league must play in the domestic league, European sports model. And because we're opening the door to more clubs around Europe, so more investors to invest in of a business plan. This is no doubt connected to the plans of FIBA for the future, of course, with the increased interest that the NBA has shown and their leadership in this respect. So this intervention of ours is not over. It will continue until we're satisfied we have a well-functioning federation and well-functioning leagues below it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Horatio. Let's go back to Greece. We have Christos Tsaltas, who's next online from Atletico.gr. Christos, welcome in this press conference. Please unmute yourself and make sure you activate the camera. There you go.
Hello, Mr. Zagklis. Thank you for your time. You broke down a lot about the upcoming brand new league with the partnership of FIBA and NBA. So I would like to ask you a bigger picture question, because we know that the main goal of FIBA and from you personally is to the growth and the development of basketball in general. So what kind of challenge is to create a united basketball ecosystem in Europe over the next 5-10 years? How many steps you feel that you made in the right direction to create a united basketball ecosystem after years of divided and bad dialogue between FIBA and EuroLeague? How confident you are that you can create a united basketball ecosystem?
Thank you. This is indeed a big picture question. I think the objective is united and sustainable, because we had a unsustainable unity for a few years in Europe between 2004 and 2011, in essence. And why I say unsustainable unity, because in reality, not historic lesson, of course, you all know very well, the leagues broke away from FIBA in 2000, not the clubs, the leagues. And very soon, the clubs took over the power. And then the power went from the leagues of 600 clubs to a fewer clubs, to 24 clubs that were the shareholders of ECA, to 11 clubs that decide by majority of 6. So, as I say often, the problem is not always the people. This is the confirmation of the last few years. We have good, very good personal relationship. The problem is the governance. And therefore, I am optimistic for a united and sustainable ecosystem. And our job is no longer only the united, because predecessors of ours, very smart people in FIBA and ECA and on all sides in the leagues, tried the united only, and it didn't work. It hasn't worked, in my personal opinion, because maybe some people are happy because their club is doing well, or they are enjoying the home games, or they have a season ticket in one of the main clubs. But there are hundreds of thousands, if not billions of fans that are unhappy with basketball, and they just turn their back to our sport because their club cannot make it to the top. So this is not now, in our view, for the big picture, a sustainable system, and that's what we're trying to make. And that's why I say I focus not only bringing everyone together, but on creating a system where the middle or lower tier club has a pathway, sports, and a business plan, business, economics.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we finally come to the end. We have one more from Jan Onona, who respectfully asked only one question and waited until the end. So, Jan, you are back for the buzzer beater.
But he has to promise he will play the FIBA Masters tournament in Greece in July next year. It's the first tournament. Jan, you're in charge of bringing a team.
All right.
And now you have your second question.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm just stepping away a little bit from NBA Europe. I have a question about insurance, and I'm pretty sure that FIBA, is involved with the NBA in securing agreements about insuring the players' contract. With the new TV deal, the salaries are getting bigger and bigger, and we're dealing with dozens of millions of euros of contracts. So I wanted you to clarify how it works, first of all, and does it raise new challenges for FIBA to deal with those giant contracts? Thank you.
That's a very good question. And indeed, we discussed this last week at the Central Board, how it works. There are two types of insurances. One is the insurance for the players who play for a FIBA club of any level, and then insurance of the players who play for an NBA club. Same principles as big picture. What we have seen is, in order to protect the clubs first of the FIBA ecosystem, FIBA will not only increase, but will multiply its investment in the insurance, because the salaries of our players on the FIBA ecosystem are increasing. And there, interestingly, the growth of the women's game has an impact, because the FIBA insurance program, besides being arguably the best in the sports industry, it is also covering men, women, all the youth tournaments, under 19, starting from under 19, under 18, under 17, under 16, under 15. We play Oceania. Remember in South America, Josh Giddey started playing under 15 Oceania. And it covers 3x3 players. It covers wheelchair basketball players. So there, the board decided to multiply its investment, because the amounts of salaries we are covering in the FIBA ecosystem, we're talking about hundreds of millions of euros already. With the NBA, it is clear that the NBA is and remains committed to facilitate FIBA in getting very good insurance terms that will allow us to have the players in the long run. So I'm not concerned about that, but I do have to acknowledge that insurance costs for FIBA as well as NBA players will increase in the future. That is an element that FIBA has taken into account, that FIBA has budgeted, and that is one of the biggest services, I believe, that we deliver to our players, to our clubs, to our leagues, and to our federations. And I'm not concerned, because thankfully, we managed through the World Cups and the Continental Cups to raise enough funds in order to cover this cost. Some call it cost, I call it an investment into our players.
Thanks a lot, Jan, for closing this session, and special thanks to you, Andreas.
Thank you.
That was triple overtime that you achieved here, but I think we managed to get as many questions as possible. And of course, thanks a lot to all the media that participating to this very long session, very fruitful, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. Also, a special thanks to all my colleagues here around the table, but also behind the seats. Your help is much appreciated. And looking forward to see all of you somewhere around the court in 2026. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.